without further ado, may I request our President of FINS, Mr. Ribander, to kindly escort Suresh to the dais. I also request Nikhil to kindly take his place on the dais. May I request the President, Justice Ribander, to kindly. The title of today's talk is the role of good governance in national security and national well-being. When we talk of national security, we often conflate national security with the physical security of the nation or the territorial security of the nation. But that is a very short-sighted and a very narrow understanding of security. As we have seen, the nature of security has changed in various ways. And it requires us to understand various dimensions of national security and to be alive and conscious of these changing dimensions as an informed civil society. That's exactly what the Forum for Integrated National Security does, both at the national level and across its various chapters, including the one in Goa. And we're indeed very happy to, and honored in fact, to have Shri Suresh here. Honestly, he's an individual who needs no introduction. I often just use one sentence when I describe him. I say he's a nuts and bolts governance man. Because I think there are very few people in Indian politics today who have this understanding of cross-sectoral policy formulation like Suresh does. Which is why it's no surprise that he is such an integral member of Prime Minister Modi's cabinet. He is also such an integral member of policy formulation and policy making for the Niti Aayog. And there are so many different issues that he has proficiency on. I mean, recently he was in the US on a 3-day visit, and you just had to see the number of different talks that he gave at different think tanks, and the wide breadth of topics that he covered, which went much beyond railways or transportation sector. Of course, he's a chartered accountant, he's been a banker of excellence, he's been one of India's power minister, and actually, until Mr. Piyush Goyal took over, I think, one of the finest power ministers India ever had in his brief stint. He's also handled the Water Commission, and he's also had stint in the UN across various commissions. So he's a man who understands governance through and through. When Prime Minister Modi tapped him for this responsibility in November 2014, quite clearly the Prime Minister, I believe, had two things in mind. One was the revival and rejuvenation of the Indian railways, but to not only do it in such a way that it becomes a locomotive of India's economic growth, but to also do it in a way that it becomes the pride of our nation. Because honestly, think for it yourselves. Is there any greater common property for Indians than the railways? I mean, the Indians are tied to railways like nothing else. And so when he was entrusted with this assignment, he in his first budget talked about 3 verticals that he seeks to address. What are the 3 challenges to the Indian railways? First, obviously, is the fiscal situation of the railways, which he has set about trying to repair. And that's a monumental task in itself. The second is to bring about massive infrastructure development for the railways that goes beyond just the bullet train, but actually talks about modernizing India's railways in a way in which it becomes the growth engine. But more importantly, as Suresh has said, and he has done since the last budget till now, and he has talked about more than 100 things that he has accomplished, is to make the Indian railways a holistically better experience for Indian travelers. So I'm sure without further ado, let me hand over to Suresh to speak about the accomplishments. And I'm sure he'll take a few questions regarding governance after that, and then we'll take the floor. So, Suresh.
So, good evening, friends. Let me